Cool. It's fine. It's fine. Hello my sweet angels, it's your girl Jay, and today I am here with my December 2024 wrap up. It is the last wrap up of the year. I read a total of 21 books in the month of December, but I already talked about the first 8 that I read in my mid-month wrap up, so if you want to see the first 8, go check that video out. But these are the last 13 books that I read out of those 21, so without further ado, let us get started. The first book that I have is A Curse of Blood and Wolves. This is by Melissa McTiernan, and I gave this one a 3 out of 5 stars. Every night when Ruby walks home from work, she feels like someone is watching her. One night when she was walking home, she is attacked and she realizes that someone has actually been protecting her all this time, but he is not who he appears to be. So I know a lot of readers, based off of the reviews, are not the biggest fan of this book, but if you go into it with extremely low expectations, it's actually a really good time. This is actually advertised as a Little Red Riding Hood retelling, which I am going to say that is very, very, very loose. The only similarities really are that her name is Ruby, there's another character named Scarlet, and there's wolves. And that is pretty much the only similarities. I do think that it was a little bit repetitive at times, especially with all the growling. I don't understand why there was so much growling in this book. A lot of it was just Ruby and Rafe going back and forth about whether or not they should be together. I would have liked to know a little bit more about Rafe and his old wolf pack. I think that that could have been a very interesting angle to take the story. On the bright side, it is a very quick read. The writing is very simple, which made it fly by. I read it in one sitting. My favorite part of the book was Theo, who is Rafe's younger brother. I would read an entire book about him, so we can just have a spin-off of that silly little wolf boy and I would probably eat it up. But yeah, overall this was nothing really special. It was a 3 out of 5 for me. Next up, I finally finished the Once and Broken Heart trilogy. This is the third book, A Curse for True Loves. This is all by Stephanie Garber. I gave this one a 4.5 out of 5 stars. I think that this was a really great conclusion to the trilogy as a whole. I am definitely very sad that it is over. I definitely fell in love with these books and these characters. This one basically starts off as soon as the second one finishes, and it takes you on a roller coaster of emotions. I personally love Jax and Evangeline together. I think that their bickering is so funny. I was giggling throughout any of their interactions. I honestly do not care that he is the villain. I will ship them until the day I die. Jax is by far still my favorite character. I love that he is the villain. He makes sure that everybody around him knows just how monstrous he truly is, and I love that for him. We actually got points of views from Jax, Evangeline, and Apollo in this one, and I think that really helped understand the characters more and the motivations and the reasons why they were doing the things that they were doing throughout the story. I still have a lot of unanswered questions, so I am hoping, praying, wishing that there will be a 4th book or another spin-off or something in this world so that those questions are answered, but I doubt it. But a girl can dream. But yeah, I gave this a 4.5 out of 5 stars. I really liked it. Next up, I read 24 Seconds From Now by Jason Reynolds, and I give this one a 3.5 out of 5 stars. This is basically the love story of Neon and Arya, who are about to take their relationship to the next level. I thought that this was a very sweet love story. It is told from the past all the way to present day, which I thought was very intriguing. I read this in one sitting. It was very easy to read, it flowed very nicely. I really liked seeing their relationship develop as the story went on. As we are getting the beginning of the book in the past, we really get to see how they grew closer and closer as they make it up to that present day. I also really loved how supportive Neon's family was. The conversations that he had with each family member were so well done. I think that this is going to be a great story for a lot of teens who are about to take that next step, and also for parents who are considering having conversations with their teens and how that should be done. I think that Jason Reynolds did an incredible job with this book. I give it 3.5 out of 5 stars. Next up, I have Unholy Terrors by Lindell Clipstone, and I give this one a 3.5 out of 5 stars. This one follows Everline Blackthorn. She has sworn her life to the wardens who protect the community from Vespertine. When strange things start happening in the moorlands, Everline goes against her father father's wishes and begins investigating what is happening, and she uncovers a dark secret. This causes her to have to team up with a Vespertine named Ravel to make it safely across the land. But the twist is that Ravel will not help her unless she allows him to feed off of her. I was really excited for a monsters enemies to lovers story, and although I do think that it was rather predictable, I did really enjoy the story. The pacing was extremely slow, but I did really like the concept of the Vespertines, and I did want to know more about them. I do think that there was a little bit of a lack of world building, and I was confused throughout some of the story. I do love a good forbidden romance, so I did like the tension between Ravel and Everline. But I do think that their romance was a little bit of a weird setup. I did really like the friendship between Lux and Everline, and I was a big fan of the complicated relationship between Everline and her sister Briar. So overall, I give it a 3.5 out of 5 stars. Next up, I have 2 books that are part of a duology. It is All of Us Villains and All of Our Demise by Amanda Foody and Christine Lynn Herman. This was a reread for me. This was my first time reading this one. I gave this one a 4.5 again, and this one a 5 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed both of them as a whole. I think that they were a lot of fun. All of Us Villains follows 7 families who send one champion every generation to fight in a deadly battle in order to gain control over the high magic of Ilvernath. Ooh. I need that to not be like that. 1 second. Historically, the Lowe family has usually been successful in winning the tournament, but this Bloodveil, the remaining 6 families have some tricks up their sleeves after an anonymous tell-all book was released last year that has brought a bunch of tourists from all over the world. Reading this for the second time was honestly such a joy. It is such a character-driven story, and I think that I connected more with the characters this time around because I was able to look for other things instead of trying to focus solely on the plot. Even though I ultimately knew what was going to happen in this, I was still so invested in these characters and was rooting for them throughout their story. I still think that it takes quite a while to get into the actual competition portion of the book, but it is still such a fun time, which led me... Oh, I picked up the wrong book. Just pretend I was holding up the other book this whole time. It's this one. I'm not refilming that, sorry. But that led me to the second book, All of Our Demise, which I gave a 5 out of 5 stars. This essentially picks up exactly where the cliffhanger from book 1 leaves us. The contestants split up into 2 opposing sides, which allowed for new relationships to develop, which I found so intriguing. So many of these characters go through such major character development in this. It was so great to see. But I will say that I think I was more invested in certain characters more than others, but I really liked how we got points of views from most of them. I also really like the inclusion of Reed, the curse maker from the first book, as a more prominent character this time around. He was just such an interesting character to me, and I wanted to know everything I could about his motives. I really would have loved to get a point of view from him as well, but alas, we can't all get what we want. I am also a big fan of where the romances went in this. I was not expecting any of them to turn out the way that they did, but I was so here for it. I gave this a 5 out of 5 stars. Honestly, the duology as a whole is so well done. Highly recommend if you haven't read it yet. Next up, I read The Cotton Candy Massacre, and this is by Christopher Robinson. This one I gave a 2.5 out of 5 stars. It took me forever and a day to read it. I started it in July, and I didn't finish it until December. So that kind of tells you, and I believe it's only like 300 pages. It's quite short. This essentially follows 4 teens. They are very excited to attend the reopening of Bonkin's Bonanza, which was shut down due to some brutal murders back in the day. They think that it's going to be a night filled of super fun times, but then some killer clowns decide to make an appearance and shit goes down from there. Like I said, this took me a very long time to get into. I just wasn't connected to these characters or anything that was happening in this story. I do think that the gore in this was really well done, and that was my favorite aspect of the story, which is good because it was 90% of the story. I did also really enjoy the clowns and the different shenanigans that they pulled, but like I said, I just didn't really care about the characters, which made it really hard to care about all of the torture that they were enduring because I just wasn't connected to them. But the gore, A+. Next up, I read 2 other short novellas that were very gory. The first one is Candy Cane Kills, and the second one is Candy Cane Kills Again. These are both by Brian McAuley. The first book, Candy Cane Kills, I gave a 3.5 out of 5 stars. This follows Austin and his younger sister Fiona. They are dragged by their parents to go spend Christmas in a cabin in the woods in the hopes of reconnecting their family. They get a little bit more than they bargained for when they found out that the cabin is the site of a very gruesome crime and that the candy cane killer may be back for some revenge. This is a very quick slasher Christmas novella. I had a lot of fun with it. I think that the author did a really great job of introducing the characters and really getting you to feel for them before the killings began to happen. The relationships in this are definitely very complicated and I was rooting for them to make amends before the killings started. The book is very fast-paced once the gore starts happening and I flew through it very quickly. I do think that the kills were all very creative and it did have me on the edge of my seat waiting for the next one to happen. I think I will definitely be checking out more from this author in this VHS series that he's writing, but that led me to the sequel, which is Candy Cane Kills Again, which I ended up giving a 3 out of 5 stars. This one picks up right after the first one finishes, so you do need to read the first one in order to really understand what is going on in this second one. It is very similar to the first book. It does have very creative, gory killings, but in this one you learn a little bit more about Candy Cane's background and the relationships that she had with different people in the small town. The reason why I only gave this one a 3 instead of a higher rating is because the ending, I was not a fan of it. I think that it was kind of stupid in my opinion. I would be intrigued to see where Candy Cane is now based off of the ending, but I don't think that that's ever going to happen because then there's going to be no murder and gore and what's the point of that? You know what I'm saying? But I give this one a 3 out of 5 stars. Next up, I read The Stars Between Us. This is by Kristen Terrell and I gave this one a 3.5 out of 5 stars. This one follows Vika Hale. She is a bartender who lives in a very poor area with her mother, father, and sister. When she was younger, she met an old man outside with her father, and ever since that moment, he has been giving her money throughout her life. Years later, she is called to a neighboring planet called Plutos to hear the will of this rich benefactor who has died under suspicious circumstances. She is quite surprised that she has been written into the will, but there is an ultimatum. She must marry Leo, who is the rich benefactor's son. If she does not agree to these terms, then she will lose the fortune forever. While she is trying to adjust to her new life, she meets Sky Foster, who is working for her benefactors, and that is when they realize that somebody is actually targeting the heirs and they need to work together in order to figure out how to stop them. I think that this was a very fun read. I do think that it was easy to read, it had fun characters, and it did keep me invested in the story. I liked Vika for the most part, but towards the middle of the story, she started to rub me the wrong way. I think that she's treated Sky very poorly for no particular reason that I could find, so that made it a little bit difficult to root for her. But she does go through quite a bit of character development, which did make her more likable in the end. I do think that the story was a bit predictable at times, but it also had some twists and turns that I hadn't seen coming, so it was a good balance between the two. I did like the romance for the most part. I think that Sky is a great love interest, but it is very, very insta-lovey, and I think that it probably could have been a stronger relationship if we were given more scenes of Vika and Sky together before we are told that he has an interest in her. I also really love the side character Ariel, and I would love another book that follows her as the main character, but that's just a suggestion. I gave this one a 3.5 out of 5 stars. Next, I read Heart Still Beating by Brooke Archer. I give this one a 3.5 out of 5 stars as well. Before the end of the world, Mara and Rory were neighbors and they were on their way to becoming something more. On the night of their first kiss, Mara is turned into a zombie when she is bitten by a tick. Years later, there is a new drug treatment that suppresses the tick and allows the zombie to feel somewhat human again. Because of this drug, the government is trying to rehabilitate the zombies back into society. As part of this program, Mara is sent to live with her godparents, who happen to be Rory's parents because her own parents are dead. Many have very mixed feelings about this reintegration, especially Rory, and it's kind of the story of that. Honestly, I didn't really know what to expect from this book, but I was pleasantly surprised. The story did start off a little bit slow because we have to learn all about the infection and what happened before the reintegration. I do think that it was interesting to see that backstory and what went on between the two girls before Mara was infected. I also really like that we got the point of view from both girls, Rory and Mara, because I think that that really helped feel more connected to both of them. But I do wish that we had gotten a point of view from Carter, who is Mara's sister. I think that she is a big part of the story, so I think that that would have enhanced it for me. I did really like the romance between Mara and Rory. I think that they were very sweet together, and I did really like watching them learn how to trust and care for one another again, so I give it a 3.5 out of 5 stars. And then I read a Bon Me for Two. This one is by Trinity Nguyen, and I gave this one a 3.5 as well. This one follows Vivi. She is a Vietnamese American. She is studying abroad one semester in Vietnam, and she meets one of her idols, a food blogger named Lon. While there, Lon tries to help Vivi learn more about her family history, and it's kind of the story of that. This is advertised as YA, but honestly I do feel like it read more like a very high middle grade book or a very low YA book. I do think that it flowed very nicely. I did read it in one sitting. It flew by. I think that it was a very sweet read. The romance was quite cute. I really liked watching Vivi and Lon grow closer as the story was progressing. It was honestly just really nice to read about their developing friendship that was slowly growing into something more. There are a lot of descriptions about Vietnam in this book, and you can really tell how much love this author has for this country. I also really loved learning a little bit more about Vietnamese food and culture. I think that it was really well done. I give it a 3.5 out of 5 stars. And then the final book that I read for the month of December is The Firefighter Before Christmas. This is by Molly Lukovich. I give this a 4 out of 5 stars. This follows Hallie and Bobby. They were raised by their grandmother, La Befana, who is the Good Witch of Christmas. Her mother disowned both of them after she discovered that they could wield magic. Now a little bit older, they decide to leave the North Pole and move into a small town in Maryland. After a car accident that left Bobby widowed and Hallie disabled, she is finding it a little bit hard to find her Christmas spirit. And then she meets a hot firefighter named Oliver who might be able to give her some holiday cheer. I will say, and continue to say until the day I die, that Molly can do no wrong in my eyes. Honestly, her writing is just so much fun, and she has not written anything that I haven't loved yet. In true Molly fashion, the main character, Holly, is so funny. She is snarky and has some amazing one-liners and little jokes thrown into the story. Oliver and Hallie's meet cute was adorable. I think Oliver was an amazing love interest. I loved how much care he put into trying to figure out how to best help Hallie with her disability and really understand what she was going through. Also, big fan of Jiminy, who is Hallie's boss at the taxidermy store. He was just such a great side character, and I loved how much he really cared about Hallie and her well-being. I will continue to scream about Molly's books from the rooftop, so I really hope that you guys pick up some of her books because she has plenty of them and I want somebody to scream about them with me. So please pick them up. They're available on Amazon. I'll leave the links down below if you want to check them out, but I gave this one a 4 out of 5 stars. Alright everybody, so those were the next 13 books that I read for the month of December 2024. Can't believe 2024 is over. Hopefully 2025 brings some good reads into your life. Hopefully mine as well. Let me know down below if you have read any of these books and what you thought of them, and I will see you all in my next video. Goodbye!